In this video, I wanted to do a quick review of what we talked about last week, which was completing the square. Basically, you have two different types of problems for completing the square. Your first problem looks something like this, and I'll ask you to complete the square and write in factored form. The second kind of problem actually says to solve by completing the square. So notice also the difference in your problems. Here, this is an expression. It doesn't have an equal sign. Here, this is an equation. We have an equal sign. So the way that we solve the first problem, to complete the square, that means fill in the blank, write in factored form, is write it with the parentheses with the squared on the outside. So to complete the first problem, to fill in this blank, remember it is b divided by 2 squared. And for this problem, my b value is 7. So it would be 7 divided by 2 squared. I can't reduce 7 over 2. I can't divide it evenly, so I'm just going to leave it as 7 halves, and I'm going to square it, square the top, square the bottom. 7 squared is 49, 2 squared is 4, so 49 over 4 goes in your blank. That's the first part, the completing the square part. Now the writing in factored form, you could technically factor this by using the AC method. It would actually be kind of difficult though, since it's a fraction, so remember our shortcut is one set of parentheses with the squared on the outside, x on the inside. This number that we're adding or subtracting from x is the number before you squared it. In this case, 7 halves. And it's positive, so it's going to be plus 7 halves squared. So there's two parts to that answer, the 49/4 and the x plus 7 over 2 squared. Okay, so that's one type of problem. The other type of problem is to solve by completing the square. So the first thing I'm going to do is make room for my blank so that I can complete the square. So I get x squared plus 4x plus blank equals -6. I need to put a plus blank on this side. You fill in the blanks by completing the square. So I take my b value, this 4 divided by 2 squared is, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to add 4 in both of the blanks. A lot of people get stuck at this point, because they forget what the next step is. So just a reminder, when you fill in the blank here, the next thing you do is write it in factored form. Same thing here, write this part in factored form. So this part in factored form is x plus 2 squared. Remember the plus 2 is the number before I squared it. Sorry, right there. Equals -6 plus 4. -6 plus 4 is -2. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that because I kind of messed that up a little bit. So I have this equation. The way I solve this equation is to get rid of the squared. And I do that by taking the square root of both sides. It needs to be plus or minus. So on the left-hand side, I get x plus 2. On the right-hand side, I get plus or minus. I can't take the square root of 2, but remember this negative can come out as an I, so it's going to be I times the square root of 2. And then the way I solve for x is I move the 2 over, subtract 2 from both sides. It needs to go up in front of the plus or minus. So my answer is x equals -2 plus or minus I times the square root of 2. And that is how you solve by completing the square.